Most home gardeners are making their planting decisions based on the wrong signal. Yet the calendar date printed on a seed packet has almost nothing to do with whether that seed will actually grow, because seeds don't respond to months, they respond to soil temperature, and most planting guides never mention it. The practical result: the average home gardener loses 3 to 4 weeks of productive growing time every single season by starting seeds either too early into weak indoor light or too late into soil that's still too cold to activate germination. One asparagus crown planted correctly this season will produce for 20 to 25 years, but planted when soil conditions aren't right in year 1, it won't recover. Here are the crops, the soil temperatures, and the one-time investments that actually determine whether your garden feeds your family year-round or just keeps you busy in August. Seeds don't read calendars, they read soil. The air temperature outside your window on a 60-degree April morning tells you almost nothing about what's happening 2 inches underground, where your seeds actually live. Clay soil holds cold the way a cast iron skillet holds heat. It takes a long time to warm up, and until it does, most seeds either sit dormant or rot. You can have perfect air conditions for weeks while your soil is still running 15 degrees colder. Here's what actually matters: 4 temperature thresholds, and which of your crops belongs to each one. Peas, spinach, and onions will germinate in soil as cold as 35 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Carrots, beets, and cabbage need soil at 45 to 50 degrees before they'll reliably sprout. Tomatoes and peppers going directly into outdoor beds need a minimum of 60 degrees put tomato seeds into 55-degree soil. And you'll either get nothing or a seedling so weak it takes 3 weeks to recover what it lost. Beans, squash, and corn are the warmest group, at 65 degrees minimum. That gap between where your soil is and where it needs to be is exactly where most of the wasted seed money goes every spring. The fixed cost between $10 and $15. A digital soil thermometer, available at any hardware store or garden center, is the one tool that 90% of home gardeners don't own but should. Push it 2 inches deep into your bed at 9 in the morning, not at noon when surface heat skews the reading, and do it 3 days in a row. Average the 3 numbers. That average is your actual planting signal. One more thing most guides skip: 2 beds in the same yard can be ready on completely different days. Raised beds warm up 2 to 3 weeks ahead of in-ground beds because they drain faster and have more surface area exposed to sun. A south-facing slope in USDA Zone 5 or 6 can hit 45 degrees in early March, while a flat north-facing bed in the same yard is still at 37. Black plastic mulch laid over a bed will raise soil temperature by 5 to 8 degrees within a few days, pushing your planting window earlier, without waiting for the weather to cooperate. But soil temperature only tells you when to plant. It doesn't tell you what to plant in which order, and getting that wrong is where most gardeners lose weeks every season. Most home gardeners think about their vegetable beds as something that gets planted, harvested, and emptied every fall. Then they start over. Every spring from scratch, buying seeds, starting trays, transplanting, waiting. That cycle is fine, but it leaves out an entire category of plant that works completely differently. And it's the category that experienced growers quietly rely on for the majority of what they actually eat. Asparagus is the clearest example of how this works. One asparagus crown costs between $2 and $3. Plant 20 crowns in a bed this spring, give them 1 full season to establish, and by year 3 they'll be producing. From that point, a mature asparagus bed in USDA zones 4 through 8 reliably gives you 1 to 2 pounds of spears per plant per season every spring for the next 20 to 25 years without replanting. Asparagus at Whole Foods or a local farmer's market runs $4 to $6 a pound. That means 20 plants, once established, return $80 to $240 worth of produce every spring from a one-time investment of $30 to $40 for the crowns and a couple of hours of work. The math on that is better than most things people do in their garden. Rhubarb does something similar. A single crown costs $8 to $12, produces from year 2 onward, and if you divide the roots every 5 years or so, the plant essentially lives indefinitely. A mature clump gives 8 to 10 pounds of stalks per season. Rhubarb barely exists in most grocery stores, which is exactly why it sells for $3 to $5 a pound at farmers market scarcity without effort on your part. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are the most aggressive producer of the 3. Each plant yields 3 to 5 pounds of edible tubers at maturity. Start with 10 tubers, and by year 3, you'll have somewhere between 50 and 100 pounds. They spread on their own every year, which is useful, but can get out of hand. Grow them inside a raised bed with solid sides, or in a large container, and the spread stays manageable. This is the category of plants that most planting guides treat as afterthoughts listed at the end, given the least space. But they're the foundation, not the bonus. By year 10, a gardener who planted perennials early is getting 60 to 70% of their total annual harvest from plants they haven't touched since planting, using roughly 20% of their total effort. The other 80% of their effort goes into annuals, tomatoes, beans, squash, which fill in the rest. If you're starting from zero and can only add one perennial this season, make it asparagus. Order crowns from Johnny's Selected Seeds, Burpee, or Territorial Seed. All three ship at the right time for your zone, and all three carry reliable disease-free stock. The window to order for spring planting opens in late winter, and the crowns sell out faster than most people expect. Starting seeds indoors earlier than necessary doesn't give you a stronger plant. It gives you a taller, weaker one, and those are not the same thing. A south-facing windowsill in winter delivers 4 to 6 hours of pale, low-angle light. Tomatoes and peppers need 14 to 16 hours of strong, direct light to build thick stems and compact nodes. Without it, the seedling stretches toward whatever light it can find. The stem grows long and spindly, the internodes spread out, and by the time you carry it outside, it looks tall but snaps in moderate wind. A seedling started 10 weeks too early under a window will be passed in productivity by one started 4 weeks before transplant date, under a grow light or in a greenhouse, because the later plant built real tissue instead of just height. The calculation that actually tells you when to start is simple. Take your last frost date. You can look it up by zip code at Dave's Garden Frost Date Calculator or through the USDA Plant Hardiness Zone map and count backward from there. Tomatoes need 6 to 8 weeks indoors before they're ready to transplant outside. Peppers need 8 to 10 weeks. If your last frost date is May 15, which is typical for USDA Zone 5, including the Chicago area, that puts your tomato start window at March 20 to April 1, and your pepper start window at March 5 to 15. Starting in January doesn't move your outdoor harvest date earlier, your last frost date does that. Starting too early just means your plants sit inside getting stressed and root-bound while waiting for weather that isn't ready for them yet. And then there's a separate category that shouldn't go into seed trays at all. Carrots, beets, turnips, parsnips, radishes, dill, and cilantro all have a single taproot that runs straight down, and that root is the whole point. Disturb it when transplanting and the root forks, branches, or stops growing properly. The result is twisted carrots and forked parsnips that are difficult to clean and unpleasant to eat. All of these go directly into outdoor soil once your soil thermometer shows the right temperature for each crop. Direct sow, no tray, no indoor step, but knowing when to start is only half the equation. The other half is knowing what your garden actually needs to fill gaps all year, not just in August. There's a 6-week stretch in early spring, roughly late February, through mid-April in USDA zones 4 through 7 when most home gardens have nothing left to give. The squash you stored through winter has gone soft. The last of the potatoes are sprouting. The kale that survived December finally gave up in February. The ground outside is still too cold to plant, and at that exact moment, a bag of spinach at the grocery store costs $3.99 and a bunch of kale runs $250. This is the period that almost no planting guide prepares you for, because almost no planting guide is written around it. The crops that solve this problem aren't planted in spring. They're planted the previous fall and left in the ground through winter. Overwintered spinach, sown between September 1 and 15, covered with a few inches of straw mulch after the first hard frost, will sit dormant under the snow and push new leaves the moment temperatures start climbing in early March. You don't dig it up, you don't store it, you just go outside and cut it. Leeks work similarly. Plant them in late winter or early spring indoors. Transplant outside by early summer, and they'll stand in the ground through December, January, February, and into March without any protection, ready to pull whenever you need them. And lacinato kale, also called dinosaur kale, is genuinely cold hardy, down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit established. Plants will produce fresh young growth in early March as soon as the days start lengthening, weeks before anything else in the garden is moving. 19th century kitchen gardeners in England built their entire planting calendar around this gap. The goal wasn't the biggest tomato harvest in August, it was making sure no week of the year had an empty basket. They called it the hungry gap, and they treated filling it as the first job of garden planning, not the last. Most planting guides are written around the abundance of summer, but the gardeners who feel most self-sufficient are the ones who plan for the scarcity of early spring. For zones 5 through 7, the 4 crops that specifically close this gap are overwintered spinach, sown September 1 to 15 and mulched after first frost. Leeks started indoors in March or April for harvest the following November through March. Cold-hardy kale varieties Winterbor, Red Russian, and Lacinato all survive hard freezes reliably, and cold-frame lettuce sown in October, which will be ready to cut in February and March when nothing else outdoors is producing. These aren't bonus crops. They're the ones that make the difference between a garden that feeds you 10 months a year and one that feeds you 4. Go back to that soil thermometer for a moment. The whole point of pushing it into the ground at 9 in the morning, 3 days in a row, averaging the numbers wasn't just to know when to sow peas or when to wait on tomatoes. It was a different way of asking a question. Not what month is it, but what is the ground actually telling me right now? That shift is small in practice and large in consequence, because every decision that follows from it compounds over time in a way that calendar-based gardening simply doesn't. An asparagus crown planted this season, when soil conditions are right, will still be producing in year 25. A cold-frame spinach sown in September will be ready to cut in March, not because of luck, but because someone made a decision in fall that most people don't think to make until spring. Those two actions are separated by completely different time horizons, and a productive garden needs both. The perennials build the base. The well-timed annuals fill it in. After about 10 years of planting with both in mind, most of the heavy work is done for you. The asparagus comes back on its own. The overwintered crops are already in the ground before the first frost, and the soil thermometer tells you when the rest is ready to begin. That's what the garden in year 10 actually looks like, and it's built from decisions made in years 1 and 2 that felt small at the time. The gardeners who are still harvesting in year 15 didn't start with better seeds. They started with a different question, not when does the calendar say to plant, but when is the ground actually ready? That question, asked consistently, is the kind of decision that compounds.